Hello, good afternoon. First things first, I know that I'm all that stands between you and lunch, so do bear with me. You're almost there, and I promise I'll keep this quite light. So I lead talent acquisition for IBM across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, but I'm part of a broader HR function which has been transforming for the last decade. We went from outsourcing to centralization to optimizing for the experience, and most recently we've been focused on AI. And I'm going to give you some practical examples today of how we're using AI and digitizing our talent acquisition processes. Before I do, I'm just going to quickly share a video with you to give you a sense of the changing skills and environment that we're actually working within. I think the pace and acceleration at which technology is changing our environment, both personally and professionally, has huge implications from a skills perspective. I think how we tackle that has to be addressed. Based on traditional models that are no longer going to be successful, we've had to significantly reimagine exactly how we approach talent acquisition, from the roles that we perform, how we structure ourselves better against business priorities, how we measure and define success, and most importantly, how we focus on the experience. And so when I ask people what IBM actually does, I get a very mixed set of responses. So I'm going to play a quick video for you which not only shows some of the skills that we're now looking to add to our organization to drive success, but also some of the outputs from application through those skills. So depending on how loud that video is played, it can be hard to follow. But so just an insight there into some of the skills, as I said. I mean, these skills every company is now looking for. We used to operate in a very different space where our skills were much more narrowly defined, and we were part of a very small ecosystem of companies who were in high demand for those skills. So actually, we could be very reactive in our approach to talent acquisition, and we could be quite successful. These skills, these new digital skills, as I said, everybody needs the same skills to promote and further their own digital agendas. And so how we go about attracting and engaging with those types of skills is very, very different indeed. And one of the things that I'm going to focus on is how we're doing that through focusing with a laser focus on experience. Experience of our candidates, of our hiring managers and our stakeholder communities, but also for us as recruiters as well. And the reason that it's important, I mean, you can find any number of research studies and data points that support the fact that experience directly correlates to engagement and productivity, to sales and retention. I think as the competition for those skills intensifies, brand advocacy becomes critical, and I think that means that we all have to work tirelessly to create irresistible experiences through not just for our candidates and the candidates that we're actively engaged with, but through that into the employee life cycle as well, for our alumni, and for anybody who maybe hasn't even started to interact with IBM yet. I like to think of myself as a pretty practical person, and so I'm going to give some very practical examples of the things that we're actually doing. I'm not going to talk theoretically about what we think of AI or how we plan to use AI. These are things that we're actually doing, we have piloted or have implemented already, and have data points to support the fact that these are actually driving great outcomes for us. We have a plethora of initiatives at every stage of the process. The four that I'm going to touch on, just to break it down, will be at the application process, the sourcing phase, through the offer phase, and also at onboarding, and what we've done to revamp and digitize our onboarding process. So the first one is called Watson Candidate Assistant. This is essentially completely reimagining the experience, the first experience that a candidate has when engaging with IBM. So this is, you can see a demo on screen now. This is effectively a live view of, well, not a live view because I'm not doing it now, but what it would look like live on our website if you were to go and look for a job at the careers portal. Instead of the traditional mechanisms whereby you could engage in a very isolated way, setting your own search parameters and predefining the criteria of roles that you're actually going to look for and apply to, you can start to engage with Watson, our AI platform, in a dialogue and actually have the ability to ask questions and be asked questions to make sure that we're operating in a more efficient way, but it's actually giving some context and some awareness of what it might be like to work at IBM, and actually bringing back some search results that you may not have even thought about either, based on the information that you've either provided in the context of your dialogue or based on the context of your CV. This, we have found, immeasurably improves not only engagement of applicants that are coming to our website and the traffic that comes through our website, but of the conversions, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for increased engagement through the candidates. They can find out now things about a whole range of different topics. The 5 most common are around our remote working policies, the skills that we're looking for, what do we have, what is our maternity scheme? All kinds of different things that we have. You can now start to have this Q&A with Watson long before you actually meet anybody, which would have historically been the first time you'd had an opportunity to go through these things. So we're actually speeding up the cycle times, and actually we're able to efficiently screen out many people who, based on that dialogue, might otherwise not be interested any longer in applying. So the engagement itself is huge, but the most impressive thing about this as a tool is actually the conversion rate from the people who are actively looking and pulling back job results to the people who actually then apply to your jobs. The industry average is 9%. After pulling back a search, actually clicking through and applying for a job is 9%. When using Watson and going through that conversation, that increases 4-fold, so it goes up to 35%. Which for us, we're seeing not just do we getting more applications, because that's not really what we're after, just volume, but actually the quality of that, because we've had the ability to go through a job matching inference of skills and competencies and a willingness to fit into us as an organization culturally, we're finding that our conversion rates, not just of the people who are applying, of clicking through to applying, but also the people who are applying to getting interviewed and offers as well, has gone through the roof as well. The second piece is part of a suite of applications and tools that we have called IBM Watson Recruitment. This is essentially for the recruiters. So this is helping us be more efficient, make better data-driven, informed decisions through a number of different applications. The one that I'm going to talk about here, and is being shown on screen, is called Match Score. And this essentially is built into your dashboard, your ATS, whatever you may be using. And it stack ranks your candidates based on the suitability of them to the job requisition, based on their CV and the information that we have on them. And so if we think about how we use AI, its intent, its purpose is to help us become more efficient, free up time and capacity to focus on higher value tasks. This for us is a game changer in that respect, because if we're talking about cycle times of recruiters sifting through 200 applicants who apply to a job, that could be a 2-week process where you're actually getting to a shortlist phase. This could now commoditize a large piece of that process. And as Peter was saying before, you definitely don't rely on it and use this as gospel. But you can certainly use it to pinpoint, maybe say your top 10 applicants from a pool of 200 and work through it in a numerical way, which actually shows you the matching criteria. And it infers a direct, relative, or no match to a number of different skills across technical and soft. Historically, we have different tests. So selection and assessment is a really big thing for us. It's not something that I'm talking through today, but we're working a lot on gamification of our selection and assessment process. Those tests were validated on several thousand IBMers. With Match Score, we validated this with over 15,000 of our IBMers across different geographies, across different business units doing different roles. And so we have a really high probability of accuracy with this matching program. And actually, when we validated it, it's with 85% accuracy that we can feel comfortable in the scores that we bring back. I've moved on, but just a final point on Match Score. Currently, that is limited to candidates that apply to us. So there are people who have applied to our jobs, and then we have a tool that can effectively rank them for us. The exciting thing about this technology, it's a basic algorithm which can be applied to different circumstances, different scenarios. Where this is going for us now is that we're developing a tool called Proactive Sourcer, which then takes it one step further. So people who haven't necessarily directly applied, but who are in our ecosystem somewhere, it can also start to propose candidates who haven't applied that we should be engaging with, and will rank them in exactly the same way. This one's, for me, is a real game changer. It's called Offer Assist. Hands up if you have the power, the empowerment, the authority to sort of dictate what your compensation package looks like currently. Not one hand. How many would like to, out of curiosity? Still no hands. OK, it must be lunchtime. So we trialed this program with 250 students in North America last year. And essentially what it does is, instead of saying, OK, you're in X location, your package is Y, you're sent an app, a cognitive app, and you get an option with up to a dozen slices, which gives you the power to sort of say what is financially important for you. So we trialed it with students. My assumption would have been that they'd all want some cash up front, but actually, pleasantly, I was proved wrong, and they were really interested in either deferring some capital for shares or equity or whatever it may be, but more importantly, they wanted to reinvest some of that money, some of their salary, some of their pension pot, back into their learning and development, which was really impressive. And so I think there can't be a one-size-fits-all to what your financial package looks like. If we can build in some flexibility and some empowerment into how that is stacked up for you and what your objectives are financially, I think this could be a very, very powerful thing as we roll it out. So we created a program called Start at IBM, and this is a flagship part of our talent acquisition transformation. And I guess when we talk about onboarding, it's much broader than just talent acquisition. It feeds into learning and your performance teams as well. But for us, and I can speak from experience, because I know this is being recorded, so I probably shouldn't say, but I had a really shoddy onboarding experience when I joined IBM. And so I was so pleased to be part of this program and now to be rolling this out. Essentially, what it used to be was a day one induction. So you'd accept your offer, you wouldn't hear from the company again, and then on day one, you get bombarded with manual setup of your laptop, a portfolio of all sorts of different policies and processes that you had to quickly familiarize yourself with before you could then sort of get up and running. What we've done now is we've recognized that we need to start engaging with our prospective employees, our imminent employees, much, much sooner in the process. So the moment somebody accepts an offer, we now have various steps, as you can see outlined here, that embed them in digital communities with the cohort of people that they're coming in to join IBM with the team that they're actually coming in to join, and importantly as well, with the manager that they're coming in to work for. And so long before they've even started, we start to build that relationship and that commitment on their part. We've seen dropout and rejection rates sort of drop significantly because of the fact that they feel more invested long before they've actually started. We have a 2020 vision, and some of it's quite ambitious given the scale and the complexity of our organization. But even basic things which we take for granted around provisioning, getting your laptop and your accesses, everything set up so that on day one it's all there ready for you. I was sat in a basement for 2 days straight setting up my laptop, and I'm not a technical person, so it was very confusing for me. But where we're moving on this, I think, is a really, really good direction, and it brings it much more in line with the sort of experiences that Ian was talking about that we expect in our consumer lives, and actually trying to bring some of that expectation to realize in the workplace as well. Now, I spoke earlier a little bit about the fact that the experience has to transcend candidacy and applicancy, because it has to also, I guess in the same way that we can't live 15 years ago as we were in consumers in the professional workplace today, you also can't give a very modern day experience as a candidate, and then when they come on board and they're suddenly an employee, they have nothing. So one of our challenges at scale is to ensure that that candidate experience really transcends into the employee experience. And so I'm just sharing with you here some broader initiatives that we have across HR, which is really talking to how we're infusing AI and digitizing other parts of the process for employees as well. The first two that you can see there, proactive retention and CogniPay. This is a new intelligent way for us to get informed data and make informed decisions about people who are likely to leave for a number of different reasons, whether it's compensation, whether it's performance metrics, whatever it may be. But we can start to get insights into those people and actually be much more preventative and proactive with retaining them and actually moving them where they need to be than waiting until it's happened and it's far too late for us to act. And CogniPay is a really big play for us. This is completely changing how we're looking at compensation, at our bonus schemes, and different rewards and recognition to actually have some insights into who has performed in a certain way, whose client net promoter score and peer group feedback has been exemplary, and actually looking at the value of skills as opposed to just a performance metric, and then coming up with some suggestions for us as hiring managers, as HR, in how we should recognize and reward different members of the team. Blue matching is an internal tool for us. I know that's something that we also sell externally, but for us, this is it's coupled with another tool, which is Watson Career Coach, and this really helps you as an employee take control of your career, but be guided through some cognitive applications. And so the whole suite sort of looks at your velocity and your direction of your career, suggesting certain paths based on the steps that people have taken previously. It can actually suggest recommended learning based on the route that you're on, or your habits within our learning category catalog, and it starts to recommend different jobs as well that we can start looking at. So it takes it one step further as well when you add in different things. We've got a Coach Me app, which I find fascinating still. So 350,000 people, there's a lot of brains to tap into, which we're very ineffective at doing. We have an app which essentially lets us look in a directory of who does what and seek out some support from experts in their fields, which, as far as I'm concerned, I've never experienced before at any organization. And instead of having to sort of find my way in through my journey by myself, I can now call on any number of experts from anywhere in the globe on almost any subject. And so I guess the thing that's driven us as we've gone through this, and I'll just close now, is HR tech is one of the most buoyant industries out there. It's phenomenal, it's mind-boggling, and sometimes you don't know where to start or where to look first or what to deploy first. We've done, I think, a good job internally of trying to remove a propensity to look at shiny toys and think that we'll add that into a process because it looks good or it sounds good. And actually, we've really stripped that back and tried to focus on what outcomes are we trying to drive. What are the experiences that we're trying to offer all of our stakeholders that are involved in any decision, any process that we're trying to impact, and then working back from there. And so I think I'll just close with that sentiment is really, I hear so much about AI. IBM will talk about it as much as any company out there. And I know that there's lots of implications as to how it's used and what we use it for and what it's driving. But I think it always has to center back to what are we actually trying to achieve and what are we fundamentally going to change, improve, speed up, or optimize for the people who are actually going to be using or affected. And I'm 5 seconds over. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.